What's going on? I'm Mitch Calfit in Winnipeg, and I've helped over 2,000 people lose over 40,000 pounds the natural way, tried and true basics. So why am I here on a YouTube video talking about the latest and greatest weight loss drug? Because I love to geek out on this stuff, and I spent the last 6-7 days, well, the better part of 2 years, on the research on previously Ozempic, Zepbound after that, and now Retatrutide, which I cannot pronounce properly, so don't judge me for that. And I wanted to share with you real anecdotal, firsthand experiences, because we all see the trials and the percentages of people that lost 20% of body weight. And again, those are done by the pharmaceutical company that stands to profit greatly from this. So it felt like as productive or more productive of an endeavor to look at the Reddit forums, look at the bodybuilding boards, look at the people that are actually in the trenches using this stuff. Full disclosure, I have not to this point, but I might. So what if I told you this latest Reta weight loss drug makes people hungrier than the previous version that it replaced, Zepbound, but they still lose more weight? And that's really the consensus among those on the boards. So I spent this morning reading through. Here's what nobody on Ozempic or Instagram in general is telling you about GLP-1s. So again, like I've said, I've coached over 2,000 people over the last 10 plus years. I'm not a doctor. I'm not selling you a peptide. Half my clients, maybe less, ask about it, and a small percentage are using GLP-1s in conjunction with our programming. Most don't need it. So I'm going to do something simple today. I'm going to give you the real pros, the real cons, and ultimately what I tell my own clients who come to me with the question, should I try this? What is the risk? So stick around for the third con. I think that's the one that you'll actually be bothered by the most, that you really need to consider. So let's start where most coaches won't. These drugs do work. I'm not suggesting they don't. If you've been white-knuckling fat loss for a decade, nothing's worked, these can do something real. The data is strong. People do drop weight. So pro number one, they definitely quiet the food noise. If you're like myself, I was 260 pounds for a better part of a decade. That food noise, those cravings are real. Now, there are natural strategies to try to negate them, but in this case, you're nuking them with the drug that lasts for a better part of 6-7 days. So it's like that radio signal that never turns off. You snack at 3 p.m., you want wine and cookies at 9 p.m., you repeat tomorrow. Despite good intentions, willpower fades. On GLP-1s, that radio silence is there. Meaning, I think let me look at the notes here. One woman in the data described it as like a constantly playing radio station in my head that was turned off completely. Dead silence. So for someone that's been fighting that voice their whole life, those cravings, that's certainly life-changing. That's valid. For myself personally, it would be nice to have that, right? I still battle that to this day, even though I've been, around 200 pounds for the better part of 2 decades to this point. Pro number two, they definitely break plateaus. Retatrutide in particular, it hits 3 receptors instead of 1. So it doesn't just kill appetite, which it doesn't actually have as pronounced effect in that regard as the other two. It burns fat through your metabolism, though. That's a new one, through the glucagon receptor. So people who are stuck on other GLP-1s found this got the scale moving again. And pro number 3, they protect against muscle better than starving yourself, but with a caveat. So like when you crash diet, you lose fat and muscle. As long as you combine GLP-1s with proper protein intake, lifting weights, protects lean mass. Better than extreme diets. But again, a lot of the research shows people are losing lean mass because they're just taking these, they don't change their lifestyle, or they go too aggressive. You don't want to be losing 20, 30 pounds a month. Regardless of how that seems like a good thing to do, a good percentage of that is going to be muscle, regardless of how you are dieting. Okay. And here's where the story gets a little messy. Like con number 1, the side effect list is not small. Like across these 256 posts, I kind of boiled down. I've seen shared here is people reported sleep disruption. This would be the biggest one for me to be a non-starter. I'd rather have energy, wake up, happy and a little extra fat than sleep deprived. So 11% mentioned trouble sleeping without even asking. Like dropped to 4 hours per night. A lot of people were waking up at like middle of the night, 3 or 4 a.m., and just like clockwork, couldn't get back to sleep. Next one is skin issues. So this was acknowledged in the clinical trials as well. Like over 20% of people on a higher dose got skin tingling, like felt like a low-grade sunburn. That's also a big reason people quit, because it was annoying enough nonstop that they couldn't handle it. Another one, elevated heart rate, certainly a real signal here. Like, so that drops your heart rate variability, and heart rate goes up by as much as 10 beats per minute. So that's definitely more cardiovascular load. However, that's probably like secondary to if someone's on the brink of a heart attack, 300 pounds. Okay. So keep that in mind. Now, which is very common amongst all these drugs, constipation, like electrolyte imbalances, a lot of them in the comments here are saying you got to take magnesium, you should take electrolytes, drink a lot more water than you think. So again, a lot of these symptoms are dose dependent. Most go away if you back off. That's why you titrate up and start with the smallest possible dose. And unfortunately, Retatrutide, you're getting this on the gray or black market and not under doctor supervision at this point, because they're not even FDA approved. So that's a real con. Con number 2, beyond the side effects, is like the cost. If you're doing the first 2 generation drugs, so Ozempic or Tirzepatide, you have to go through, well, you don't have to, but likely going through your physician, and then there's a prescription. And in Canada, that's, $300-400 per month. In the United States, upwards of $1,000 to $1,500 a month. I don't know why that gap exists. I guess it's the symptom of the system in the States. And most insurance plans just simply don't cover weight loss in any regard, and the same applies here, unless you're diabetic. So with that said, you're going on the gray market. These websites are popping up left, right, and center. Who knows if there's any real quality control? I don't think there is. Some do show like an actual test, a third-party test to verify, but are you actually getting a bottle that has what it says it's in it? The risk is real there for sure. That risk does not exist if you're going through your physician for one of the first 2 generation GLP-1s. Number 3 con. This is the one I wanted you to hear off the top. They don't teach you anything. Let that sit. A lot of these people that take these have these dramatic results, and then they stop and they go right back to square one, often with a worse metabolism, a worse finished product, because they lost significant muscle along the way. So think about it. Like on a GLP-1, your appetite drops, so your portion shrinks. Of course, the scale moves down. What didn't change was your habits, your relationship with food, although that might slowly evolve over time. Like your weekend behavior, your sleep, your stress, your strength workouts. Like the drug is doing the work. It's a crutch, just like any crutch. They're usually temporary, unless you plan to take it forever and pay that fee forever. So as soon as you stop, that's when we get into trouble, and why a lot of the research, even the clinical trials, show most people gain back the weight, or a good majority of it, within a year or 2 after stopping. So there's a question buried in this data then, just to bring this all home. So what happens when people get off these drugs? And the studies are pretty clear that it's a pretty bleak picture. Most people just gain it back. The drug was doing the heavy lifting. It was masking that inner work that's needed to kind of fix your relationship with food, binge eating, emotional eating. And that's the part that should bother you. Like, not the side effects, not the cost, the fact that you're renting results. When you stop paying rent, you lose your apartment. So every one of the GLP-1 evangelists will say, stay on them forever. And maybe that's the right call. It's like blood pressure medication. You have to deal with the symptoms, and the pill or the drug or the injection is the fix here. Especially if you've got severe obesity or diabetes and the alternative is an early death, then absolutely, right? I'm not anti-medication. Like I said, I have clients on these drugs. We use them in conjunction with the right approach that has us losing fat slowly and sustainably, strength training, eating protein. But the average person that wants to just drop 20 to 40 pounds, feel good in their clothes again, I think you can do that without like taking on this risk. Okay. So after, the better part of a decade coaching real people, before these existed, we got people great results. Not everyone got great results. And some people got great results and then rebounded, just like they would with this. No matter the strategy, if you don't sustain the tools, you don't sustain the habit changes, you will gain back the weight. That's just inevitable. So the strategy is still the same. 5 habits I've been preaching for a decade, the big 5. Eat the right amount depending on the goal. Calories and protein at sufficient levels. That is the game. 2, drink your 3 liters of water. 3, sleep 7-8 hours a night. Like, manage stress, prioritize that sleep. And it sounds like it's hard to do that on these drugs. 4 is to lift weights, full body 3 times a week. If you're a bit more advanced, you can split body upper lower and go maybe 4 or 5 times. But for the vast majority of people, you get a lot of bang for your buck from 3 sessions. Walk 8,000 steps a day. Like, that's the biggest fat loss burner we have, is simply moving more than the average person. And that's the whole game. So if you can do those 5 things consistently, you don't need a GLP-1. You'll get similar, or actually I'd argue better results than if you just took the drug without any of those interventions. But you don't need one, okay? So if you go on a GLP-1 without the big 5, I believe you're setting yourself up for a rebound. If you go on one with the big 5, surrounded by a community that sets a higher standard, you're changing your identity first and foremost, and you're building the skills to keep it off, and then I believe you can eventually come off and still be successful. Okay. So again, this video got a little long-winded, but if you want my full breakdown of the big 5 framework, I'll link it below in the description. It's free. Should be no email required. If you want the metabolism jumpstart, yes, pop in an email because I send follow-ups with each step, each day's task. But if you're on one of these right now and it's working, great. But if you want help building habits, you don't end up back at square one within, a year, that's literally what I do. That's the link down there below as well. And hit subscribe if this was useful. I post one of these every week. Sometimes I miss a week, but we'll see you in the next one.